Zoom or any of the panelists, if we can make sure to share the Facebook Live video, that would be helpful.
Yes, I'm sharing it now. Excited.
I am also. All right. I always like watch these, and somehow I feel like it always gets my face stuck in such a random spot. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, we are in week 7. This week we have a third co-host, and her name is Ayana. Ayana, thank you so much for being here today. Ayana wants to be the first African-American female president. And we'd like to start with Ayana, you introducing yourself and talking about why diversity is important to you.
Hi, my name's Ayana, and as you have heard, my goal is to be the first girl president. And diversity means that it means to me, and it's special because some people think diversity gives them the right to bully people because they're different. Well, it's not. It's not okay. Being different is the most best thing that can happen to you. Just because you're black or gay or missing limbs or don't have any or blind, it doesn't matter. We are all the same in the inside.
I love that. Can you speak about the beauty of your skin and speak about the beauty of all people's skin?
The skin is the beautifulest part because we're all different. Some of us have freckles, some of us are different colors. What I love about my skin is that it's different. It's beautiful, it's different. Like all of ours, that's what makes us special.
I love that. You are beautiful, and you're beautiful on the inside and the outside, so thank you for that. Anna, would you mind introducing our first speaker, Caleb?
Of course. First, we have Caleb. Caleb Grime. Caleb has been a defense attorney in the state of Michigan for 8 years. I never met a defense attorney, but I am very excited to hear from you, Caleb.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, very excited to be a part of the panel today. A few things I want to touch on today are, what I consider the blue shield culture and how that's problematic in all communities. I want to talk about dash cams and, body cams that police officers wear. And then I want to talk a little bit about what I consider white allyship and how to go about that. As pointed out, I'm a defense attorney, about 8 years now. I grew up in South Haven, Michigan, which I love because that was a very diverse place to grow up. Our graduating class was probably 30% black, 30 or 20% Hispanic, and about 50% white. So it was a good mix of a lot of people. So I got to see a lot of different things. And I noticed growing up, depending on the group of people I was hanging out with, we would often be treated differently by the police whenever we had interactions. Specifically, if I was with my white friends, it seemed more of a friendly, how you guys doing, adults talking to kids type of thing. And then if I was with my black friends, it seemed a little more confrontational, a little more standoffish. And that kind of helped develop me to where I am now, wanting to be a defense attorney. As far as the blue shield culture goes, and with everything happening the last couple of months in this country, so many people are quick to point out, there's a few bad apples in the police department, that's going to happen. There's really no excuse for police officers to be more protecting of themselves and their colleagues than they are the communities around them. With what happened to George Floyd, it's incredibly easy for the officers to say that was wrong. I actually know somebody on the GRPD who has pointed out explicitly, what that officer did to George Floyd was wrong. He should be fired. He should be gone. But there's not as many officers speaking up against things that aren't popular in the culture to talk about. Just through my work and through my experience, there's officers that do wrong things. They break policy, they break the law, but you don't have other officers in the department standing up and saying, this person needs to go. We want him off the police force. And that's a problem. You have officers talking to witnesses and talking to suspects, and they want, tell on everybody that was involved. We want you to drop names, but at the same time, Nobody's policing these police departments. You know, you're supposed to protect and serve as a police officer. Most police cars that I've seen say protect and serve to some degree on the car. But generally speaking, they're not doing that, and it's at the expense of the community when you talk about bad actions by police officers. I can't imagine that anybody wanted to become a police officer and protect and serve the community that they're from or that they live, unless it means they have to tell on their colleague or they have to tell on somebody. And to me, that's why so many communities, especially traditionally minority communities, don't have trust for the police officers because they're not speaking up against the injustices that they see. An example, last week I spoke at an event in Kalamazoo where Stephen Jackson spoke. And there was a young black man, he was about 14, spoke, and he said, you know, I don't want to get shot by a police officer because I have a cell phone in my hand. And, you know, his perception is his reality. When he sees things on the news, you know, young black people getting killed for, you know, seemingly no reason, way more often than not, you know, that's what he believes. And he doesn't see police officers standing up and saying, this guy needs to be gone. This guy should be off the police force, man or woman. You don't see that enough, and you should. You have people make the bad apples argument. Well, yeah, of course there's going to be some bad apples in the police department. Every job has bad apples. Imagine an airline who has a pilot that crashes a plane, and they come out and they say, well, yeah, there's bad apples everywhere. Nobody else is going to get on that airline ever again. And when we have situations where, you know, paid by the communities, paid by the state, you have these officers with guns, tasers, you know, the explanation, oh, well, there's a couple bad apples, that, you know, that's unacceptable. And we need to demand more of our local leaders to do something about that. The policy needs to change to focus protection on the community rather than, you know, circling the wagons and protecting the police department. Because when you start protecting the police department, it's at the expense of the community. And I don't think that's why anybody becomes a police officer or why anybody would want the police to be around if their focus is more so on protecting themselves as opposed to the community. Now, as it goes for body cams, people have been paying attention to everything that's been happening the last few months. The budgets that police departments have are incredibly high. There's no excuse for any department not to have a body cam, not to have a camera in a vehicle, and not to be running all the time. You know, just through my personal experience, through my job, I've seen lots of police reports that I've read through, and then I've gotten the video evidence, and they did not match up. You know, that's not a coincidence. I know that police officers, and not every single instance, but a lot of instances, will write a police report in order to protect themselves or to make the stop or the arrest seem legitimate. And in some cases, it's just not. You know, these injustices that we see more recently in the news being captured by videos and cameras, you know, these things aren't occurring more. They're just documented now. You know, 25 years ago, before somebody had a cell phone in their pocket everywhere you go, you know, somebody gets killed by the police for, you know, pick a reason. And you just have the police officers account of what happened. Now there's videos and there's actual evidence that's coming out. And that's changing people's lives because there's actual, you know, change happening moving forward from that point. Now, the important thing about body cams, it shows objectively what's actually happening. I've had cases get dismissed just because the body camera footage shows up. And that's incredibly important because the way the criminal justice system is set up, it's once you're in, they want to keep you in. Generally, when you're charged with something, first time around, well, you plead to something, you won't go to jail, you go on probation. Okay, you know, people generally, when faced with jail time, and you know, when you get into mandatory minimum sentencings, which is another story, people are quick to plead guilty to something and just to avoid going to jail. Then if something happens again in the future, they're already marked as they've got priors. They're a criminal, they're a bad person. And that's why the body camera footage is so important, because if you just have the word of one person and that's all you can go on, that's not enough, especially if these body cameras are available. I've asked for body cam footage before, and I was hoping that Chief Payne was going to speak to this at some point. There are no policies that I'm aware of in any police department that requires a police officer to actually be held accountable for turning off his body cam. I believe that you should be fired if you turn off your body cam. There's no reason to turn off the documentation of what you're doing unless you're doing something wrong. I've asked for body cam footage before, and the explanation I've got is, well, we don't have it. Well, why not? No answer. It's just not there. That's unacceptable. And until, you know, we talk to our local leaders and we change the policies to force these officers to be held accountable, you're not going to see the kind of change that we want to see. The last thing I want to talk about is what I consider white allyship. And just being in rooms I've been in before, being a white person, I've seen conversations that nobody would want to be in the light. And I know there's a lot of white people that want to try to help and try to make a difference, but they don't know what to do. And most importantly, and most, the saddest part about it is they're afraid to lose friends. They're afraid to upset family members by speaking out against racism and speaking up for what's right. If you're going to be an ally to this movement and you're going to, consider yourself part of it, you can't be an ally part-time. You can't, just let these older people that, oh, this is how they are, this is how they were raised. You can't teach a new dog or old dog new tricks. That's unacceptable. Racism, in my opinion, is a white people problem, and it needs to be addressed by white people, or it's going to be upheld. And the systematic racism in this country is going to continue, and it's not going to stop. If you're actually a part of this movement and you want to see positive change, you need to be willing to lose those friends. You need to be willing to ostracize those family members to actually get people's minds, not necessarily to change, but to start thinking in a different way. If you care about these people, if they see you knowing that it means so much to you to actually stand up for something, they're going to start thinking about it. You're not going to fix everybody, but that type of change has to happen. And as I said, you got to be willing to lose people in your life if you actually care about this. That's all I've got today. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Caleb, for sharing. It's really great that you have that background, that you're able to share that with us and inform a lot of people who, like Ayanna said, is like, what does a defense attorney do and what are they helping to do? And I believe that Ayanna had a question for you. Maybe why?
Why did you want to become who you are now?
Great question. I don't get to talk about this enough. Just growing up in this community in South Haven, where I'm from, and just seeing the way people were treated by police officers, it always just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Why do these individuals have so much say and so much power to dictate what other people are doing? For example, I had to go to school for 7 years and then pass a bar exam to practice the law. Police officers' requirement is way less time than that, and they enforce the law. And as we're seeing, a lot of things that police officers are doing, and I'm not saying every police officer is a bad person or does a bad job, but most importantly, the good cops that don't speak up against the bad cops in the department, they're as bad as the bad ones. They're not doing any good. They're not helping. But I've always been just, a competitive person. And once I realized I wasn't going to go to the NBA, I wanted to find a profession that, I was able to compete. I was able to fight for, what I consider important. And just seeing my friends treated differently by the police than I was treated, it always bothered me. I didn't think that was fair, and I wanted to do something. And specifically, my black friends, they weren't given, from my perspective and what I saw, they weren't given the same deference that me and my white friends were given. And it was always, they were seen more as, a threat or older or more adult. So I just wanted to do whatever I could to be a part of making some kind of change and being a solution to what I consider a big problem.
Caleb, a question came in, and it says, I've heard that a smaller county doesn't have the capability of retaining body cam footage for more than 30 days because of technology costs or storing too much video footage. What can we do to make sure that costs are associated more to the body cam footage and more affordable for the smaller counties?
I don't think it's true that there's not enough money. I just think that they prioritize their money in different places. If you look at, especially what happened in Grand Rapids during the rally and the protests, there's officers that look like they're in the military. There's so much equipment and things that are, military grade stuff that they're used for police in the community. I don't think that's necessary. I think it should be a priority to catalog and document that footage. It's capable. It costs more. Yeah, absolutely. But I think, the priorities need to change. I just think that they would rather spend the money on other things. Generally speaking, it doesn't do anybody any good. And if the police officer's goal is to be trusted by the community, they should do everything they can to make the community trust them, preserve the videos, preserve whatever you got, make sure the community knows we're trying to keep this so you feel better about our actions. So I would just, completely reject the idea they don't have enough money for that. They're just prioritizing in the wrong place.
Very good. So there are a couple other questions, but we probably should get to the next speaker. And then maybe if at the end, if we have more time, I think we should ask a couple other questions that came through, if that's okay.
Yeah, great.
Okay, cool. Ayanna, do you want to introduce Whitney?
Next, we have Whitney White. Whitney White has her bachelor's degree in criminal justice and is a D&I project manager for an organization called Talent 2025. I learned that Talent 2025 is a nonprofit organization who has over 100 CEOs who work to ensure our talent in West Michigan is the best in the country. They advocate for those without a voice and strive to make West Michigan the best place to live and work on. Thank you so much for being here today, Whitney.
Thank you for the introduction, Ayanna. Good morning, everyone who's joining via Facebook and then also Zoom. Everything I shared.
And then Ata, and then we'll have Ayanna close us out.
Thank you. I'll go ahead. What I think the most important thing moving forward is people need to keep up the pressure. The unique situation we've been in because of the pandemic has mean a lot of people aren't working. There's no distractions. There's no sports. People have been able to be out in the streets, marching, protesting. And we've seen actual change happen in certain communities because of all this attention and all the pressure. At some point, life is going to get back to somewhat normal. There's going to be distractions that return. Again, sports, I think, is a big one. At the protests I've been at, I wonder how much people wouldn't have been there if the NBA playoffs were going on. So, the distractions are good for the system, and the systemic racism is going to stay in place as long as people are distracted. So I think the most important thing, people need to keep up the pressure, keep putting the pressure on public leaders, people in their community. And, if things go back to normal, they're going to go back to normal. And normal is not a way that's going to be, helpful for anybody.
All right, I'll just jump in because I'm next. My call to action would be to use your privilege, power, platform, and resources to advocate for those who do not have a voice. I also want to remind people that when I say privilege, I'm not just talking about white privilege, because all of us have privilege based off how you are situated in life. Those of us who have college degrees, that's privilege. If you are